my dear friend, young Hughley, who's here, I know. Young, let me introduce you. He's a native of Atlanta, Georgia. Social equity, inclusion, diversity, and affordable housing are important to him. When not writing, he finds time to work with organizations supporting the same. He's a recipient of 20 plus awards, recognitions, citations, and fellowships for his work in affordable housing, community development, and nonprofit management. In his encore life, he spends time writing and exploring the written works of others. You can find his book, Images, finally focused on Amazon.com. It is a compilation of poetry, essays, and short story. That's strongly recommended. It's a lovely book. And I'm so grateful that you are here, Young. Please.
Thank you. Lakas, I want to thank you. It's always a pleasure to participate in this event, and I really appreciate your efforts in terms of pulling all of this together. So thank you. I'm going to share, I like to share other poets' work. And so today, before I get into my stuff, I want to talk about Dudley Randall. He was a poet and publisher. In the 60s, when it was difficult for poets of color, Black poets, to publish, he stepped up and started a publication called Broadside Press. And some of the poets that he published under Broadside Press,
You're
all right, under Broadside Press were Gwendolyn Brooks, Elleridge Knight, Don L. Lee. And one of my favorite anthologies that he edited is titled Black Poets. And it's a survey of poetry starting with folk poetry and ending with young writers in the 1960s. And so I want to read a short piece of his. Black Poets, White Critics. A critic advises not to write on controversial subjects like freedom or murders, but to treat universal themes and timeless symbols like the white unicorn. Like the white unicorn? Which leads to the stuff that I'm working on, which involves gentrification. And I have written a few pieces. Well, I have 150 pieces, but I'm only reading 10 today, haikus around gentrification. I do believe, and I'm very thankful that our metropolitan areas are coming back and thriving, but I think there is a lot of other cultural junk that goes into that. And so I'm going to just share a few of these. And they are haikus. Transatlantic theft, dark-skinned folks, 1619. A storm is coming. Before slaves' freedom, founding fathers cultivated pestilence seasons. Darkness covers landscapes where money dictates heart's joy. People become weeds. Founding fathers' fault, shoots of racism sprouting. The fields need clearing. Sun rises on pink toes. Black toes do not increase value. Our land aches from thirst. Buppies want to be yuppies who generate wealth. Dam break in wasteland. Water in oceans drift. Newcomers like Columbus. History starts now. Impure hearts fear change. Pain bodies infest the soil. Sunrise, day brings hope. Humanity is connected by moments when fall leaves turn gold. Acceptance is key. Floral mixed and matched, glowing. People of flowers. Thank you.
Thank you for those wonderful haiku earlier. So our next reader is Deborah. She has also participated before in this program. Again, her participation is greatly valued as well. She's a photographer and well-known unpublished writer living and working around Atlanta, Georgia, USA. Ongoing projects include a series of graphic novels designed to showcase a philosophically and spiritually suave coyote. Alongside the coyote, she is fermenting work concerning realms of ecology, generally the ecology of interaction, the way we relate to the birds, to each other, to the land. Deborah, please.
Thank you so much for letting me read it again. Hello, poetry fans. I'll read 5 short poems around change, and the first one is called Next of Skin. Most people possess 2 skins, summer and winter. Mostly we darken during summer and turn light in winter. Dark beat, pale beat, our hearts become a ragged harmony, while still we each play our part in the same rhythm section. And altogether, we create a kind of skin symphony. The second poem is about our change of days. Low cities of moss. Low cities of moss soften the land. Green gladly connects earth and stone and tree. Meanwhile, every family has its fault lines and fractures. Yet there must be a way to swerve around even these, even towards happiness. The green way around. Yet even our daily calendar is in pieces. We read October, November, and December to say we are the months of the 10th, the 11th, the 12th, but really their names mean 8, 9, 10, and a ragged loss of daily harmony. Who threw this curve into our calendar? And this is a poem about change of place. Vertical heart portrait. Winter trees tremble in the wind, barely moving. Then spring boasts the swagger of green all along the land, giving us this day our daily paradise. Even on a slant, the vertical heart tilts 90 degrees. Where's that summer garden where zucchini twines toward corn? Corn towers over tomato while carrots corner the orange market. Vegetation weaving a shadow game, a vegetable tag. Small gardens find themselves near the buildings of the city at the ocean's edge, so full of emptiness, rich with a wealth of loss. Wind of welcome, winds of loss sway through these gardens while insects do the work of the world. Flying, they help to feed the birds. Where is our home in this windy garden, this daily paradise of ours? Birds whirl among horizons of song while we walk through their gardens of air, staggering against the wind we do not hear. And this is a poem about change of perspective. For love of the gun. For love of the gun, I stand before you. Let's speak with the authority of those who have no authority. A whisper lost in water. The boy was lost in a rifle. The father was the trigger. We must respect the shooter. A whisper lost in water. Roll dope on Sundays. In the ATL, we find a church on every corner. Offer fire to the flame. Isn't religion the question, how do we live? How do we live? We must respect the shooter. Friend I go hiking with declared at the beginning of our hike in isolated woods that she was carrying a handgun, a revolver, I asked her, or a semi-automatic. When she said semi-automatic, I knew we might have a problem. That gun can jam in a heartbeat, a whisper lost in blood. This final poem is about no change. And this poem is for David Fawn and family. Those who are here and those who are not. No house. It's raining snakes and crocodiles. And Monkey says, when this rain stops, I've got to build myself a house, something round to keep me warm. The long fingers of the rain rake Monkey's back. His cheek scrapes the cheek of the tree he clings to. When the rain sleeps, Monkey says, well, that wasn't so bad. And just so, no house will blossom for him. Thank you, thank you. Gracias, shukran.
Thank you so very much, Deborah Monroy. Really appreciate your participation, lending your voice to this event. Grateful for that. I see that Franklin is here, and that is great. That anxiety that I had about you, Franklin, is now relieved, and I can breathe with my eyes. He's a poet, and of course, that's why I can say today that he's late. Otherwise, he's very punctual. When he's a psychotherapist and activist, which he is as well, and original member of the Radical Fairies. Franklin Abbott is author of 2 collections of poetry and a CD of original music and poetry. His publications include Men and Intimacy, personal accounts exploring the dilemmas of modern male sexuality, boyhood, growing up male, mortal love, selected poems 1971 to 1998, Pink Zinnias, poems and stories, and an album of contemporary jazz, Don't Go Back to Sleep, with vocals by himself. Man of many parts, Franklin, always proud to have you here. Please grace the occasion with your poetry.
Thank you so much, Wakas, and thank you, Agnes Scott, for hosting this event. It's a very important event, I believe. I had some arguments with myself about what I was going to read, because I know that this is a time to read poetry that reflects on political and world issues, and so I talked myself into reading something much lighter this morning because I didn't think I really wanted to read this. These are 2 hard pieces for me to read, so bear with me. And they're hard pieces to listen to. So if you need to kind of space out, think about something else, please do. I thought I was going to write a series called What We Know and What We Don't Know, based on a number of incidents that I had read about in the newspaper and then done further study of. I got as far as writing 2 of them, and that was all I was willing to do. So, what we know and what we don't know, part 1. We know their names, though they were only known by their initials, M.A. and A.M. When they were brought to Abbott Square, we know on July 19th, 2005, in Mashhad, the Iranian city of martyrs, M.A. and A.M., as they were known, aged 17 and 18, were hung in public in Abbott Square, hung by the neck until dead. On orders of court number 19, 2 teenagers, Mahmoud Asghari and Ayez Marhoni, were executed for the crime of homosexuality. We know that they were 15 and 16 when arrested. We know they were beaten with 228 lashes. We know they admitted to gay sex, but claimed in their defense most young boys had sex with each other. They said they did not know it was a crime punishable by death. We know what they said. What they said after the lashes rent their flesh 228 times. We do not know what kind of teenagers they were before their demonization in the aftermath of the executions. We know the official spin of the Iranian government turned them into rapists and thieves. We know they were from an ethnic minority, Arabs among Persians. If it had happened in America, they would have been Black, have Spanish surnames, or both. We know their families were poor. We don't know if they were there to see the boys legally lynched in Edelot Square in the City of Martyrs, or if they collected their bodies and buried them. We don't know where they are buried or if their graves are marked or ever visited. We know the method of hanging used in Iran is the short drop, which results in strangulation as the person's weight cinches the noose, and after 1 to 3 minutes of struggle and pain, death occurs. We know that the decision of court number 19 was upheld by the Supreme Court of Iran. We know that the Iranian government refused to allow any public protest. We know of a dozen other minors who were executed that year in Iran in violation of international law. We know one of them was Atifi Rajibi, a mentally ill girl from a poor family who in her crazy way would taunt the mullahs in the street, call them hypocrites. We know she was hung for acts incompatible with chastity, sex out of marriage, in other words. We know more than 4,000 gay men and lesbians were executed in Iran since the fundamentalist Ayatollahs seized power in 1979. We know there are 4 prescribed death styles decreed for the crime of homosexuality: being hung by the neck, being stoned by a mob, being had by the sword, or being dropped from the highest perch. We know on July 19th, 2005, Mahmoud Asari and Ayaz Marhoni, age 17 and 18, were hung in the public square for the crime of homosexuality. We know the terror continues year after year. We don't know if it will ever end. What we know and what we don't know, part 2. We know as he slipped away, his assailant was next door. We know the color of the couch where he lay, deep red. We know the assailant was his father, who was next door in Bible study with his friends from Deeper Life Ministries. We know he died 6 days later with swellings on both sides of his head from microscopic brain tears and subsurface bruises between his skull and scalp. We know where the father would slapbox the 3-year-old boy until he cried, so he wouldn't be a sissy. We know the boy, before he went into a coma on the deep red couch, his father next door in Bible study with Deeper Life Ministries. We knew the boy grew lethargic, had stopped eating, began wetting himself. We know his mother, who testified against his father, had not called the police for fear the boy would be taken from her again. We know the father, a former city sewer worker who came to court in a borrowed suit with a public defender, was only 21 years old himself. We know he did not flinch when the jury of 6 men and 6 women returned after 3 hours of deliberation and pronounced Ronnie Parrish Jr. guilty of 2nd-degree manslaughter. and aggravated child abuse for the death of his 3-year-old son, Ronnie Antonio Paris. We know the boy had been in foster care after he had been admitted to the hospital several times for vomiting. We know he had been home only 6 weeks when he went into the coma and died 6 years later. We know his mother, Nashira Paris, told the court her husband was jealous of the baby and complained of too little sex. He told her not to hug the baby. It might make him gay. We know after the verdict of the boy's grandfather, Ronald Paris Sr. was finishing a bag of Cheetos when he told reporters how he raised his son, football, fishing, wrestling, matches, boxing, all that. He blamed the mother, said her mind was not right. His own mother, Leslie Hook, agreed. She said her grandson ain't done nothing bad. She blamed it all on the devil. What we know won't help the boy. What we know is what will stop the beatings. We don't know how 30 years in prison will change Ronnie Paris Jr., now 22 years old and incarcerated. We don't know if the devil had a role or simply refrained from intervening. Maybe Sheldon Bostick of Deeper Life Ministries, who told Ronnie Jr. not to be quite so rough on the boy. Maybe like his sister Shanita Powell explained it, he was teaching him how to fight. Maybe that's all the devil had to do, step back and let others do next to nothing until a 3-year-old boy was dead. And his 21-year-old father was damned to life.
Thank you, Franklin. We know that we've constructed this hill with our own hands, and we don't know which hands will dismantle it. Thank you for reading. Our next reader is our Agnes Scott student, Scout Art. And I saw Scout earlier. Scout, where are you? Oh, there you are. Keep changing places. Okay, all right. So please, would you come and share your poems with us?
Hello, I'm very honored to be back here again. I've been doing this for this will be my 3rd year. I'm a senior now, so this is my last time as an Agnes Scott student. And so the 4 poems I prepared today are specifically in reference to things that I think I have learned here at Agnes Scott. The 4th poem and the final one that I will be reading is one that I began work on yesterday afternoon and finished about 15 minutes ago. So it might be in rough shape, but I hope maybe that will be good in some way. The first poem is a sonnet. Whatever wrecks this planet might unearth, or what beasts she from hell's deep waters sends, with throats still wanting from before their births, whatever life, time from my comfort rends. Among the forest, out before the trees, a golden beast with light and glory crowned, who splattered all souls to the hectic breeze, and in the shifting sand a generation drowned. And that thing too rises up towards heaven. Finality from love exacts this fee. This crime too may yet still be forgiven, if in your arms you could simply hold me and ask me what is all this great work worth? Who cares? We made heaven here on earth. The next poem is called Forest for the Trees. You're sitting on the side of the road, trying to see the trees for the forest. That is, to only see the trees. As your eyes move from one tree to the next, you give each a name. Juniper, oak, persimmon, maple. Common names used for trees, although in this case, all taxonomologically incorrect. You amuse yourself imagining how upset a taxonomologician would be if he were to hear of this game. When you become bored with that, you start to wonder what species of tree you're really looking at. You have a book with pictures of trees and their scientific names, but you left it at home. You consider marking one of the trees so you can find it later, but you're afraid that the mark will make the identification process more difficult. You remember something your mother taught you, to press paper into the bark and to rub charcoal over it. If you did that, you could take the pattern home and identify it online. You remember something your father taught you. You build a fire by stacking small pieces of timber on the bottom. You wonder if this is a waste of time. You place your hand against the tree. Maybe it will turn out to be a rare kind of tree and you will have been the only one to have ever touched one. Now that's an opportunity you can't miss. Maybe it's a new species that you just discovered. You're starting to get excited now. You collect the pattern and stain your fingers with charcoal in the process. Okay, the third poem is called Things That I Do Not Know About the Execution of Anne Boleyn. And I've noticed, I think there were several others that reflect similar themes. 2 marriages, 3 years, 1 daughter, 65 meters, 1 folded edge, 2 or 3 frantic, messy cuts. That is the story of Anne Boleyn, second wife of Henry VIII, as I know it. 250 servants, 1 folded edge, and 65 meters. To be her handmaiden, to carry her body for 65 meters. What was it like? Who carried her head? Who carried her body? Was Anne Boleyn still bleeding when they brought her into the church? She must have been. Was she raped anyway? A woman is not so beautiful when the muscles in the face relax and droop. Isn't it funny how the guilty perform their own executions with 2 shots to the head? My friend took 1 pill for every cop that ever called her a fag. Again and again, not enough to die, but too much to ever know me again. Who do you trust? Would you rather die than be left unconscious? What will history do to your name? Will you feel the bullet when it enters the folds of your brain? And the last poem is the one that I just finished today. Like I said, it's in rough shape, but I hope that you'll enjoy it. Here on this very spot where Alexander wept, and he saw the breath of his empire and knew failure in success. Here beneath this olive tree, Mussolini made love to the sun, and he too cried when she left him on the following day to shine on someone and something else. And in that mighty pool where a fountain used to stand, I witnessed Stalin as he emptied the snow from his boots, conquering his final steps before taking a seat beside that fire. Over that hill was Ramses of mighty works, king of kings and whatever else, known by all righteous men but never felt, who commanded stars become daisies and fly to earth, who dressed in pinstripes and drew black gold from the Amazon, and fell to his knees crying, "Look, look," as he turned to sand. Listen to the blush of the man who invented the grenade, the black pit that bore them, and the last leader of the last crusade. Climb back to what wickedness made you this way, and ask your mother and child for forgiveness. I remember you and I. Send red flare smoke into the sky when you pray. Clothe yourself in sackcloth and kneel before him. God Almighty, bright face of love, give it enough days, God Almighty condemn them to a war they are not strong enough to fight, to rage forever against the dying of the light. Thank you all so much. It is an unbelievable honor to share a stage with all of you. It's amazing. So thank you.